Support for this podcast comes from Frito-Lay and the 2023 Snack Bracket Championship. The Frito-Lay Snack-It Challenge is underway, and fans are voting on their favorite snacks to crown champion. We're talking about prime-time matchups between the best 64 snacks in the land. Will Ruffles Ridges reign supreme? Can Doritos defend their dynasty? Or will Smart Food use their smarts for a surprise upset? Only you can decide. Get in on all the action for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks. Let your snacks be heard. Just go to fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com to vote and enter for a chance to win. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends April 3rd, 2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for one bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com.
This is the Black Gold Banneret Podcast. Now, here are your hosts, Jeff Sharon, Eric Lopez, and Brian Murphy.
So without further ado, I'll turn it over to the guy you guys want to hear from today and introduce your new head football coach, Josh Heupel.
I thank the players and the staff at UCF. Last 3 years have been a tremendous journey, tremendous ride. I appreciate them allowing me as their coach to be a part of their individual journey and accomplish so many great things. So proud of who and what we were as a program. So excited to see their success this year. Just great leadership inside of the locker room. And when you have great leadership from within, all things are possible. And appreciate each and every one of them.
Oh, say it ain't so, gentlemen. Say it ain't so. Danny White introducing Josh Heupel as the head coach of the Tennessee Volunteers. What is happening?
What are you late to the party? What are you asleep the last 36 hours?
What is happening here? No, I'm not late to the party. I've been all over Twitter with this whole thing, just like the rest of you guys. Welcome to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. I'm Jeff Sharon, along with Brian Murphy and Eric Lopez. Sorry for the late show. We had a lot going on Wednesday night, including our night shift program. And yes, I mean, we've talked about it. That's the big story, and we're leading with it. We got a lot to talk about. We'll talk about basketball. We're going to talk about the Olympic sports getting underway. But the bottom line is, here we are. I mean, it's Danny White introducing Josh Heupel as the new head coach of the Tennessee Volunteers. And we find ourselves exactly where we were some 5 years and 2 months ago, Murph. No athletic director, no head football coach. It was all just so bizarre. But Murph, I want to start with you. The reaction from within UCF circles and the people that you've talked to, what are they feeling right now? I mean, we know that everyone was pretty, was pretty shocked and surprised and a little saddened by Danny White leaving because of how much he's done for the program. But is that the same case with Josh Heupel?
I don't know. I think there's some fans who are like, boy, they don't know how much of a favor they did us, which is just so like, I don't know. I don't love that mindset. I mean, it's not like, 28-8 something you can just scoff at.
He wins the SEC East the next 3 years. I mean, are we going to be saying that?
Well, he won't do that. There's no way, because that program's going to be hamstrung for a while, which is part of the deal. But, I mean, look, if anybody wants to know my opinion on this, you can just go back to yesterday when me and Eric talked it out for about 90 minutes. But we really haven't gotten your comments on the record, Jeff. So what do you process?
Put him on the spot.
How are you feeling about this?
Well, I think I told you guys before this all went down, I said I would have been more surprised. I would have been more surprised if Josh Heupel left than if Danny White left. And lo and behold, I was more surprised. But from the reactions that I've seen on social media from, it just, you guys know me. I like to go right to try and get as close to the primary sources as we can, which is the players. And the overwhelming reaction from the players was, okay, we'll be fine. We're fine. It's perfectly all right with us. Now, I think some of that stems from the competitive nature of a lot of the players where they're like, hey, all right, you want to leave us? Like, which I can see too, right? Like if I was in their position, I'd be like, okay, you don't think we're good enough to still be around? You want to move on to some greener pastures? All right, we'll show you. And then I really do think there are quite a few players who, especially the former players, I think their reaction was particularly interesting because they were let's just say they weren't sad to see it. A lot of them were not all that sad to see Josh Heupel go.
No, goodness gracious. There's because obviously we still follow a lot of the the players who are no longer here, who were here 2 or 3 years ago.
And by the way, these guys, well, let's also remind quite a few of those guys who reacted that way actually were here not that long ago.
Right. No, exactly. Like they played for Heupel, and then their reaction, I don't know. There's some vindication in some parts from some people. Like they, like, oh, you didn't believe me when I was saying that this and this and this is going down, and there was trouble in the locker room and ever. But I don't know, people feeling pretty high, pretty up on their high horse right now.
Yeah, I mean, I was a little surprised at the intensity of that, to be honest with you. Yeah, but fast forward to today, one day later, and here we are in the middle of this of a one-day Twitter campaign, maybe longer, I don't know, but at least a one-day Twitter campaign over the last 24 hours. A bunch of former and current players tweeting their support for Jeff Lebby. To making their voices heard that they want him to be the next head coach. Now we're far afield of that. I mean, right now UCF still has.
Are you sure? Are you sure? I mean, I thought it was a done deal. No, it's not done. Not on the plane. He's not on a plane over here. I thought the players called.
Nobody loves airplane related intrigue more than me with my bookcase full of airplane books, but. The plane ain't leaving Knoxville or Ole Miss, wherever the heck
Oxford,
he is.
baby.
Whatever.
Listen, so no, wait, hold on now. I got a friend who works at Ole Miss 247. He told me there was a poster. He said, I sent you guys the post where a pool guy wrote in their message board that he was scheduled to work Jeff Lebby's pool.
The pool boy, Jeff Lebby's pool boy. Says
yeah, and now it's been postponed for postponed. Smoke.
Okay.
I don't know. Right. That's all we got, boys. That's all we got.
Really going there with this.
Get ready. We're gonna have 2 weeks of this stuff until we have a head coach in AD. Boy.
God. Listen. All that stuff aside, look, the process is going to play itself out. I do, however, think that whoever is the AD who makes this hire, they would be wise to at least reach out to him. All right, along with a bunch of other candidates who would make really good candidates. And that's the other thing that a bunch of sources in the media have been talking about, which I've been saying, and I think we've all known for quite some time, is that there are a lot of people who want this job, both the AD job and the head coaching job. There's no shortage of candidates.
Yes.
You're right. You're right.
We've run through those candidates both in print and on video.
Night Shift. If you go to our YouTube page,
subscribe to our YouTube page and you can watch Night Shift. And as Murph was also saying, make sure you hop on blackandgoldbanneret.com to check out our list of potential AD candidates and our list of head coaching candidates, which we put together in very short order. And I wanted to, by the way, huge shout out to both of you guys and also to Andrew Glukov for pulling all that together so quickly and
Danny
really
Medina,
interesting. Danny Medina also helped us out
too. I mean, a team effort here.
Yes, huge team effort this week, and this is one of those times when I know that the fans really are counting on us to come through, right? And big props to you guys. Danny was huge in helping us behind the scenes. I cannot thank her enough. All of you guys have just been awesome.
Jeremy Brenner helped out. He would have helped out more, but he's unfortunately his Houston Texans franchise is just an absolute embarrassment. So
well, I heard he was in front of Deshaun Watson's house trying to beg him to stay.
Probably true.
Poor
guy.
But yeah, so let's for the moment. All right, we know obviously Jeff Lebby's going to be a candidate, right?
I guess it'd be better.
Okay.
I mean, at the very least, someone's making that call, Someone's calling him up.
Well, but I think you bring up, but I think you mentioned this, and I think it's important to remind people of this. The AD hire has to happen first.
Yes.
Like that's who's like. I know that I love that's great that they show the support for Jeff Lebby. That I get it. He's their guy. I'm sure Jeff reached out to a few of them to kind of start that. Which hey, if I wanted a job, that's what I would do. However, there's one problem. The search hasn't even started for the AD. And that's really and honestly, and I know people might find this confusing, but the AD hire is a lot more important than the football coach, because if you don't get the AD right, then odds are it's not going to matter who the football coach is, because it's probably not going to work out. So
what are you talking about? I thought that the football coach hired the AD. Oh, that was the last guy.
That's a good line. I like that.
That was George O'Leary.
Yeah, very good. Very good. This is good. That's very good. And we saw how well that worked out. So I think it's important that people kind of relax and calm down. It's going to be fine.
All right, Aaron Rodgers.
Let's let the process play out. I'm a big process guy. And you just brought it up. This is a great job. People want this job. You don't want to just limit yourself and just make an overreaction move and just, hire a guy because, oh my God, we got to do this by tomorrow or else it's all over. No, there's plenty of guys in the AD position and the head coaching job that's attractive. So you go a search and you find out who's interested, because you're going to be surprised at some of the people that are interested and maybe surprised at some people that are not. And I think you're going to get good people out of this. But we got to stop with the campaigns deal here, because we have a fan base, and I'm part of this, that's kind of been already in a bit of an emotional wreck here over the last month with everything that's left. We don't need them to get be set up for disappointment again. And I think that's my concern with the whole Twitter campaign and stuff. So let's just see what happens. But I think the AD is a huge, huge, huge step first, and then the head coach will take care of itself.
I got no problem with it. I mean, the fact that the players are showing that much support, I do have a concern where, like, what if for some reason, what if it does get to the point where UCF, whoever it is ready to hire,
right?
And they're ready to hire, let's say they're ready to hire Jeff Lebby, and something doesn't work out, right? Like with the contract negotiations or something. Then what? Like how are the players going to react to that?
Or maybe he doesn't get hired. Period. Right? What if he's not the pick?
Well, that's that's what I'm saying is. That's where it's going to be incumbent upon whoever the athletic director is to be in open and constant communication with those players, because they are going to have to sell that person to the players one way or the other, right? Now, I'm not saying that the players have veto power, because I think we all know for sure that they don't, but at the very least, they have to be in the loop. And that's something that Danny White did a very good job. Even when he hired Scott Frost, he got the players into the loop. And the players really appreciated that. And that made a huge difference, and certainly a tremendous difference compared to what we were dealing with the last time around. But, whoever the new AD is should do more of the same. I think we've established that as a modus, as an MO, and let's keep doing that. So, Eric, you're a little bit cooler on that perspective than I am.
I think there's a strong chance that the players are going to meet the AD and the head coach at the same time. And I mentioned this on Night Shift with Murph. I think this is going to be a package deal. I think this is going to be real quick. Whenever the AD is hired, I think the head coach will not be too far behind.
Can they do that though? Because the guy who's hiring the AD is President Cartwright.
Yeah.
Now, he's not going to be able to negotiate the head coaching deal at the same time. That would have to be the AD.
Correct. Right. So here's the example I would give you. So let's say, okay, for example, you are starting this UCF website, all right? Mm-hmm. And you're negotiating with me. And you're like, hey, I want you to be the main guy here. Who do you, and so we're talking about one main position. You're like, who should we bring in as another guy? Well, I know Brian Murphy. He would be a great addition to the site. But, obviously we're finishing our deal done, but I'm keeping Murph in the loop. So when I'm hired, you quickly go to him, and it's done within 24 hours. So I think there'll be some back-channeling conversations is my point. I think I think the AD, when these conversations are taking place, you better believe that one of the topics is So who are you thinking possibly you can get to be the football coach? And I think whoever the AD candidate.
Well, he happens to be right here.
Right. Or here's my phone. Here, I'm texting him right now. I could get him on Zoom. I really do believe that is a possibility. It depends on, again, who the AD is. Let's say the AD is from somebody not internal at UCF. Let's say it's the deputy AD at Clemson. He might say, hey, I can bring Tony Elliott here. Or if it's the Louisiana AD, he might be able to bring Billy Napier in. I think it's that kind of a deal if it's from if the AD is from outside UCF. And then if it's internal, well, which one is, if it's Scott Carr, yeah, obviously Levy's a candidate, but as I mentioned with Murph on Night Shift, you know where Scott Carr came from? Auburn.
Auburn, that's right.
He was there when Gus Malzahn was there.
Mm.
He could bring him in. Or Rhett Lashley, the Miami offensive coordinator, who was the offensive coordinator at Auburn under Gus Malzahn. So there's connections there, and that's kind of my point. I think whoever the AD is, I would be surprised if whoever the next AD is at UCF and hires the football coach are not somewhat connected. I really would be surprised.
What do you think, Murph?
I agree with all that. I wanted to sort of double back on something that Eric brought up and was 100% correct on about how the fan base needs to just take a step back and take a breather and not get too wrapped up into Twitter code hacking. Today has been a really weird day because
today's Thursday. For those who are wondering, we're recording Thursday night. So.
I know I'm bad at that always, but so because there were about 30 current and former UCF players who lobbied for Jeff Lebby today. Hashtag lobby for Lebby. I'm trademarking that immediately once this podcast is done. But and so that raises everybody's alarm that, oh, look, all the players are really in support. Let's go get them. And Eric is completely right. Nothing can happen until they have the AD. And not only do they not have the AD, they don't have the search firm to get the AD. So nothing is going to happen for a bit. So just please relax.
Yeah, it's not tweeting President Cartwright and saying, hey, hire Jeff Lebby. He's not doing that. I'm sorry.
No,
he's not.
Just go out like tomorrow or Friday's coming up. Then it's the weekend. Like, enjoy yourself. Take a second off of Twitter. Everything will be fine. You won't miss anything. I think we've already sort of reached the height of absurdity tonight with Dylan
don't worry,
Gabriel.
It'll get crazier. Oh, don't worry, it'll get bizarre.
No, I don't know.
It is the full moon tonight, Murph. You realize that?
It's still early, but really, like tonight, like I've been laughing for the last couple hours because Dylan Gabriel has been retweeting all of the support from every UCF former player and current player. And so tonight, Dylan Gabriel composes a tweet. It is 2 sets of 5 dots, just 5 dots, a space, and 5 more dots. And then all of a sudden, we have Twitter sleuths acting like late 1960s San Francisco Chronicle columnists trying to decipher a Zodiac killer message. And it's like, guys, I need you to calm down. Because all of a sudden, people are like, oh, it's 5 and 5. That must stand for Coach Lebby. Coach 5, Lebby 5. It all makes sense. You guys got to stop. You guys got to, like, please. I know we're like, you want that new head coach to come on and, like, start the new era, but he can't come until the AD shows up. And the AD can't show up until we get somebody to look for the AD, which hasn't happened yet. So please, slow your roll. That's all I ask.
Well, I think that I one of the reasons I think why fans are kind of in panic mode right now is because the thing that I'm hearing is National Signing Day is right around the corner. I'm like, no, National Signing Day was in December.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I mean,
right.
That's not what it used to be.
UCF. So UCF does have a very small amount of players that they will sign. Offers have still been going out, by the way. And there's at least one player that I know of who like has already signed, but like he doesn't want you to know about it because he wants to have like his own thing at his high school on the next signing day in February to have like the spotlight on him. So like these guys who are going to sign on signing day coming up, like they've been locked up for a while, and it's a very small amount compared to what they already signed back in December. So that's not that big of a deal.
So we wait. We wait. What do you think the timetable is? I know that from when George O'Leary resigned to when Danny White introduced Scott Frost as the new head coach, it was 37 days in the fall of 2015. Do you think it'll be short? Let's use that as the over-under. Do you think it'll be shorter than that this time around?
Under. Yeah. Under. Yeah. I think night shift, I mentioned the timetable Super Bowl weekend to Valentine's weekend range, right? I think we should have somebody in place by that time period. I really do, especially with the way you do interviews now with Zooms and everything. It's not like you have to travel the candidates, every day. You can just do it via Zoom. You can knock it out quicker. So I think that's going to be it. And like I said, people just got to look. This is an important hire. You want UCF to make this to do the research and do the search and talk to people. You don't want them to make a quick decision.
You want to do their due diligence, is what you're saying.
Because here's the thing. I rather sacrifice signing day 2021, and even if it affects the fall of 2021 for the next 5-10 years of success. You don't want to make an irrational, quick decision that could set your program back 5-10 years, which has happened. Some would argue that's happened at Tennessee. That's why Tennessee's in the mess they're in. That's happened at other places. So, that's the way it is. And look, maybe Jeff Lebby is the guy. If he is, it'll be proven in the process. It's not going to be proven elsewhere. And I think that's the important thing. Let them do the process, because you never know what you're going to find out. If you guys would have asked me 2 years ago, hey, the head coach of Boise State would be the softball head coach, I would say, no chance. What are you talking about? Well, that makes no sense. She has no ties to the West Coast. Well, guess what? She ended up being the hire, and turns out it was a great hire. Would have not figured that out without a search.
All right. Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. So we wait. Fine. Whatever. We'll wait. Anyway, I find it's the one thing that we know for sure, and I just want to close on this thought. Like, the secret's out now. Like, it used to be 5 years ago, the whole idea about, like, okay, whatever's holding this program back, it's gone now. Now we know what the brand can be. And like I said, and like other folks in the media have said that we've talked about, UCF can select who they want for these positions. They don't have to convince anyone. So, and that's a very powerful position to be in. So we wait and we see what happens next with this. All right, let's take a quick break. When we return, hoops, men's hoops and women's hoops getting victories back to back in the doubleheader over ECU. Women's hoops had a tight one. So did the men's team. It was a lot tighter than it probably should have been, but hey, they snapped the losing streak, and we'll hear from Coach Dawkins and Coach Abe when we return. This is the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Back after this.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate and get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.
And welcome back to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff Sharon, Eric Lopez, Brian Murphy with you here on this Thursday evening. Sorry we're a day late, but like I said, everything was going nuts. Make sure you follow us on Twitter, UCF_Banneret, Facebook.com/Black and Gold Banneret, and of course, blackandgoldbanneret.com, where you would have seen coverage of UCF men's and women's basketball, both getting victories over East Carolina on Wednesday night in a doubleheader. The women, first of all, we'll start with the women's team, because they took care of business in a game that was really close. That was a really game ECU team that they ran into yesterday. 52-47 was the final. Knights have now won 4 in a row since that loss at Temple. I take Temple. I can't freaking stand that place. Leading scorers for both squads. Brittany Smith led UCF with 11. Cortasia Sanders had 10 and 11 rebounds for UCF. Masni Kala had 8 for the Knights as well. 18 points for Maddie Moore for East Carolina on 7-17 shooting, plus 8 rebounds for her. But, let's give ECU credit, because as good as UCF's defense was, they held ECU to 24.6% for the game, which is still unbelievable. And ACU held UCF to 35.4% for shooting. And Elo, I know you watched part of this game at least. What was the deal? What was this ECU team doing out there? And should we be concerned going forward that they may have exposed something with UCF?
No, I don't know about that. I think it was more of the fact, hey, that ECU brought it to UCF. This was the second meeting between the two teams. They had a close game in Greenville the first time. They kind of have similar principles than UCF. And as Coach Abe said, when I talked to her after the game on the post game here, she admitted that ECU was a little more aggressive. It was got to more 50-50 balls, and she kind of hopes that this is more like a wake up call for her team to be ready because teams are going to go after.
Maybe we got lucky down the stretch because we had some upperclassmen that knew how to win at the end, But I mean, they do a good job. Their defense is really good, just like ours. I mean, you can see it's the same kind of matchup. It's hard to play against. It's hard to score against. Their press is really good, so they play a lot like us, right? So, I mean, they did a really good job. I felt like they came out with a lot more energy and ready to go, and they made a lot of effort plays and hustle plays at 21 offensive rebounds. That's just gut and will and going after the ball, right? So, I mean, there's nothing we didn't prepare our team for. They knew that they were going to come in, and everybody's going to give us their best game by far every game we play, and especially the second round. This is the second time we played them. So we have to be ready for that, and we've prepared our team for that. But hopefully this was a great what's the word I'm looking for? Great point that we keep making all the time. Like, now will you listen to us and believe us that everybody's going to give us their best game? And they really did. And we didn't beat them by very much at their place either. I mean, Kim's doing a great job there.
That was Coach Abe, whose team is 9-2 and 7-1 now in the American. And she was right. 5-9, 3-6 was ECU at the end of this game, right? But it felt a little bit to me, Eric, watching that game, like they thought that UCF thought their defense would kind of just overwhelm ECU and they would just fold. And to the Pirates' credit, they didn't fold in this game. And so I think they got a lot to learn from here, don't they?
They do, and I think, as Abe mentioned in the clip we just played, basically you got to be ready from the get-go. These teams are going to bring their A game with them. They're a target. And that was a tight game. I mean, I was watching it. It was 41-38 ECU in the fourth quarter. It looked like ECU had momentum, and then Alicia Lewis, the Syracuse transfer, hits a 3 to tie the game up. It was her first field goal of the game. She only took 3 shots. I talked to Abe in the postgame about that. She wants her to be more aggressive. She's too unselfish. She's a pass-first point guard, and she's arguably their best shooter, and they want him to shoot, but sometimes she passes too much. But she made a great assist to Sanders, and they took the lead. It was a very intense game, very chippy game.
It was.
But they found a way to win. And as Abe mentioned there in the clip, they're veterans. Having those veterans that have been through this before, they won. But, it's a wake-up call because you got to be careful. I mean, you mentioned the Temple loss. You can't have many losses. South Florida right now is rolling. They are a top 16 team in the country. That showdown is lurking. But you cannot slip up and fall another game because, quite frankly, there's no guarantees that USF's going to drop a game if you don't, other than yourself. So, and you look at UCF, I'm looking at them as of Thursday night. Their net ranking is 52. So they're right on the bubble right now. So they cannot afford to have any setbacks. And when you let teams hang around like you did against ECU, that could come back to haunt you. You got away with it this time around, but you may not be able to get away with it in the future.
One good thing I saw from late in the game, we'll leave it on this. Well, before we look at the schedule ahead, UCF was 8 of 8 at the line in the final 2 minutes. That's big.
Only missed 3 the entire game. Missed 3 too.
That's so big in close games, and I think that the fact that they're shooting their free throws well down the stretch is, that's like you said, and like what Coach Abe said, that's the mark of a veteran team. They know what they have to do. So here's what they have coming up. On the road now, Saturday at Wichita. That's a long road trip. It's on ESPN Plus, 8 p.m., January 30th. And then they're also on ESPN Plus on Tuesday, February 2nd at Memphis. And that's, like I said, also on ESPN Plus. So 2 big road games for them before their first matchup with South Florida. So we're coming down to that big matchup here between with the Bulls, but That's a brutal road trip that they're taking out to Wichita
A very
and Memphis,
tricky
right?
road trip. Very, very tricky. Can't slip up, can't look ahead to USF. By the way, Charlie Cream, the ESPN women's basketball bracketologist, has UCF as his last team in right now. Has them in as an 11 seed to play Arkansas. So again,
he's picking USF to win the conference and UCF to finish second. Okay,
correct.
Because that's how it is in the standings right now. USF is 7-1, UCF is 7-2, or excuse me, 7-0, and then 7-1.
Right, and he moved them in this week. He's moved them in. They've been outside looking in, and they moved in. But again, the reason I bring it up, Charlie's very good. We've had him on this show. He does a great job breaking it down. There's not a lot of room for error. And really, UCF right now, that we'll get into more of this next week when we preview the USF game in depth. That is I would argue this could be one of the biggest UCF women's basketball home games of all time, maybe ever, because it's going to be nationally televised and what is at stake, USF being ranked where they are. We'll discuss that more next week, but it's a looming big game. But you cannot look to that game right now because you mentioned it. Road trick, that's where you're if you don't bring your A game, you can get tripped up like you did at Temple.
Okay, so we're going to keep an eye on that one. That too. By the way, Memphis right now 4-7, 2-4 in the conference. Wichita 4-6, 1-4 in the conference. But don't sleep on these teams because 3 of Memphis' 4 wins have been at home. Yep. And
be more aggressive.
And 3 of Wichita's 4 wins have been at home. So just be careful here. Take care of business when you can. Road games are always tough no matter what the opponent's team is. As for the men, right after that game, they took on ECU in a wild game, Murph. I think we can say that. In that first half against the Pirates, things looked really good. UCF was up by 19 points in the first half, and then ECU and Jaden Gardner took over this game. He finished with 23 and 10 rebounds on 10 of 18 shooting. He was outstanding in the second half. And ECU got within, I believe, 3, was it, Murph?
Yeah, 62-59.
And then it looked like ECU just missed some key shots down the stretch that could have gotten them. I thought that they were getting ready to take the lead at one point in the final 4 minutes, and then UCF made a couple plays on defense. I think Brandon Mahan had a key steal. ECU missed some shots, and then UCF was able to just kind of stiff arm them the rest of the way. But a little bit of a scare there, almost blowing a 19-point lead, right? I mean, it was a little dicey there for a while.
Yeah, it was, and it's a good thing that this team had an unconscious stretch there in the first half, about 3 minutes, where they couldn't miss a three-pointer.
They made 5 straight threes, I think, at one point, didn't they?
They made 5 straight threes, yes. They made 4 in 4 consecutive possessions.
Yeah.
So 4 trips, 4 threes. It was kind of wild. That put a 1-point that took a 1-point lead out to a 16-point lead in the span of about 3 minutes. I was impressed with the first half. I thought the starts of both halves were kind of very disjointed and kind of wonky, kind of messy. But certainly first half, impressed with Darius Perry once again. That team's just, again, so different when he's on the floor in terms of how it runs its sets. And he is, when he needs to be, he can be very aggressive. I mean, he's a dog. He's an absolute dog.
I love that.
Yeah, he's great. He
is a fun point guard to watch, and you can just tell the confidence level that he has running the show out there. It's great. He is fun to watch.
And I was very impressed with Jameel Reynolds. I think using his physicality, using his big body to get good position, to know that he can sort of muscle guys down low. I thought when he was on the floor, he did that pretty effectively. Also went up against Gardner one-on-one a little bit and did a decent job there. So as far as his growth comes along, I thought this was a big step for the freshman. But generally, that second half, man, you can say Jaden Gardner certainly had a lot of buckets in the second half. He was able to just get inside and do work in the paint. Obviously, he's got that short corner jumper all figured out. But man, oh man, if UCF didn't just try to give it to them. I mean, they absolutely, definitely tried to give it to them. And I mean the game, because they didn't want the ball. They kept throwing it away. There were just there were misreads on who's going where. Just a lot of passes that were aimed at no one in particular. 11 turnovers in the second half alone after only 3 in the first half. That second half was really ugly. And then once Gardner got rolling and UCF couldn't really get any offense going because they couldn't hold on to the ball, you could almost feel the weight of the game sort of pressing on them. And it was sort of shown on the activity on the court. I thought the Pirates in that stretch looked like the more lively, looser, fun team. And UCF just looked extremely tight. They were just totally strung high. So, obviously Brandon Mahan hits a gigantic 3. It's another shot. It was a shot near about the 2-minute mark. I think UCF was up by 4. The possession was going nowhere. Darren Green almost lost the ball at the top of the arc. He gives it to Mahan. And I swear to God, once again, Brandon Mahan is the king of the no, yes 3-pointers. Shots that looked like they should not be taken. It's a bad shot. He took the shot from about 3 feet behind the line, and it goes right in. Granted, there was like 4 seconds on the shot clock. There's nothing really much else he could have done there. But when they need a big basket and they needed a dagger, he gave them one. So yeah, I think obviously they're going to take it. When you're on that kind of losing streak, you cherish every kind of win. But there were a lot of warts against a not very good ECU team. And again, I think we just have to stress Johnny Dawkins has talked so much about the unforced errors and the turnovers that this team has incurred upon itself. A lot of those games have come without Darius Perry, but in that second half, even when he was on the floor, they looked ugly getting into offensive sets. They've got.
Well, sorry, Murph. Let's hear from Coach Dawkins after the game. Here's Johnny Dawkins.
Well, it reminds me of my NBA days. We had these road trips, 4 games in 7 nights, 3 games in 5 nights, in 7 nights. So it reminds me of a trip like that. So these guys will have that experience where you're playing multiple games in a short period of time. And it is what it is. We can't, like I said, we can't do anything about it. So the best thing to do is get ready for the challenge. We have an opportunity in front of us, and that's how we're going to look at it. We're not going to look at it as a negative. We're going to look at it as a positive. We're playing basketball games, doing something we love. We get a chance to go out there and compete. So that's how we're going to handle it.
Murph, I got a question about this team, and I was looking at the statistics, and I thought, from my perspective, that in the second half, they looked like they were tired. And ECU threw a bunch of big bodies at them. ECU's got 3 guys who are 7 feet tall. Now, not all 3 of them played, but 2 of them played. And this is an undersized team. And to ECU's credit also, I think they wanted to run, and if nothing was there, they pulled it back, and then they worked the inside, I thought, really well. Now, there are a total of 15 players in the American right now who are averaging 30 minutes per game or more. 3 of them are from UCF. So they account for 1/5 of the players who are averaging 30 minutes a game. Isaiah Adams is averaging 27 minutes a game. Is the fact that UCF is running basically what we saw an 8-man rotation out there. Is that the big factor here as to why these late game situations are why they're looking so tight?
No, I that would be really weird if that was true, because there was a lot. This team has had quite a lot of downtimes, not that long ago, and even going into the SMU game, they had 6 days off before that game, between the Houston game and the SMU game. This was not a short layover. This was Saturday to Wednesday for the ECU game. If you want to talk about a condensed schedule and possibly being tired, we're going to get into that, because that could definitely happen.
Well, you heard Dawkins already talking about that on that clip.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, but that's what it is. So, no, I don't think they were tired for this ECU game. I just thought they played poorly.
Well, they finished out. It's nice to play relatively poorly and get a win. Let's be real. They're 4-6, 2-5 in the conference right now. But here comes the slate. Ready? This is what Coach Dawkins was talking about. Saturday at Wichita State. Yuck. Monday at Memphis. Yuck. The following Wednesday at Memphis again. Oh, my God. And then the following Saturday at Tulsa. So that's 4 games in 7 days. Or 4 games in 8 days. I beg your pardon.
Well,
that's at Tulsa.
If you add up the times, because I believe that that Wichita State game is an afternoon game, and then the Tulsa game is like a late morning game. Like, they're going to fit in 4 games into less than 7 full days.
Well, I'm looking at right now. I'm seeing the February 6th Tulsa game is set for 6 p.m. on the schedule. Is that right?
Okay, I thought it was like 11, so they must have changed that too.
Yeah, they moved it to 6, and then Wichita's the 4 o'clock game, and then
that's still splitting hairs. This is 4 games in 8 days. This is like an NBA road trip.
That's how Dawkins played it.
Yeah.
And that Tulsa game was scheduled to be a home game that has been flipped. That home game against Tulsa will now take place on March 2nd. So that
do we know why? Why is that? Do we know? Kind of break down, and also for those that may not be aware, why some people might be saying, why is UCF playing at Memphis twice at Memphis?
Well,
just kind of explain all that for those that may not be aware.
Well, let me do the Memphis one, because the first Memphis game was supposed to have already happened, but at UCF, but due to COVID, due to UCF situation with COVID, they postponed it, and then they just decided we got to get 2 games against Memphis in, so let's just do them back to back at Memphis. So,
right,
which kind of stinks, because you end up blowing out a home date, but it is what it is.
Just sort of cut down on the travel, but as far as the Tulsa, the flip there, I've been told there's a lot of moving parts, both on UCF's end and on Tulsa's I've been told that maybe they didn't want to get UCF, to have them fly to Tulsa and then to ECU at the end of the year. So again, cutting down travel there as well, because instead of taking 2 road trips at the end of the year, you only take 1, and it's sort of like putting all your road trips into one basket.
Yeah,
coming up. I will say, guys, it's kind of nuts, but we are already halfway through the home slate of this college basketball season for UCF.
Yeah, UCF has only. Sorry, Murph, go ahead.
They have played 5 at home, and they have 5 at home remaining.
Yeah,
it's amazing how quickly we've gotten here.
That's what I was going to say. Was that UCF has only 5 home games left?
Yes,
and here we are with.
Well, let's hope.
Yeah.
Well, true.
I mean, we have basically the season's 5 weeks to go, right? It's January 28th. 1 month from now is February 28th. They will, and on February 28th, they will have played Temple the day before, and they have 2 games left. So this is the home stretch. This is going to be make or break time for UCF, who currently stands at where 8th, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th in the conference right now.
Yeah. So they will head to Wichita State again this weekend. It's on Saturday. The game's on ESPNU. Wichita State has not played since January 21st. They were really on a roll. We've been talking about them on this podcast about being really the surprise of the season in this conference, considering all the upheaval that took place both on their roster and at the head coaching position before the season started. They've been doing really well. They're still 4-2 in conference, but their last game, they got trucked by Memphis by 20, which kind of set them back. And then their last 2 games had been postponed due to COVID cases because their next 2 opponents were supposed to be USF and Cincinnati, and both those programs are really having a hard time right now. And then obviously Memphis, after that win against Wichita State, as I pull up the schedule here, they beat Wichita State by 20. They beat East Carolina by 27. They beat SMU at home by 4 back on Tuesday, and then tonight they lost to SMU at SMU in Dallas
at the buzzer
2.
too. Yeah,
right. So Memphis team is playing really well. Musa Cisse is playing much better. I think Musa Cisse has a double-double in 3 games in a row. I'm not exactly sure what he did tonight, but he did have 3 games in a row with a double-double. He's kind of like their star freshman this year. So Memphis is playing better. Wichita State generally has been playing very well. And guys, if you want to add up the records of UCF's success in Memphis, in Wichita State, and in Tulsa all time, the record is 1-26.
Yikes. Well, something's got to give.
You know what that is, Jeffrey? It's not what you want.
It's not what you want. No, it's not what you want.
No, it is.
Thank you, Joe Girardi.
Murphy, real quick. Who is the second best team in this league? Because right now, the issue that the league has, it's right now, I think it's a one-bid league, which is kind of disappointing. In fact, who would have thought? I think there's a better chance that the women have more teams in the field than the men right now, unless one of these teams outside of Houston gets hot here. SMU's net rankings was in the 50s. Memphis 69, Wichita State 76. UCF, by the way, it's only 91. That's actually pretty good considering the win-loss record. But like that's the thing. Who is the second team? Is there a second best team that could establish themselves to be possibly a second team to get to the field?
Well, certainly, like we said, Wichita State's played well. Memphis has played well, and SMU, who we saw up close and personal, has played well. As also they're 5-3 in conference. Remember, they had a long layoff before they played UCF, and then so they beat UCF on the road, and then they just split a home-and-home series with Memphis. So I think those three teams are sort of jockeying for it right now. If you want to look at Player of the Year race in this conference, Kendrick Davis, the SMU point guard, is right up there with Quentin Grimes. So if you want a guy to sort of drive you to the tournament, SMU has one of those guys. And then Houston is absurd. Houston is absolutely absurd. So tonight, guys, they played Tulane, and they played Tulane without Caleb Mills, preseason player of the year, who's obviously gone to Florida State. They played Tulane without Quentin Grimes, probably right now the conference player of the year, because he was out with an ankle injury. And then if you look at guys like Marcus Sasser, who was great against UCF, he has 3 points tonight. I think Dejan Giroux has like 4 points, and they're going to beat Tulsa by more than 20. They're going to beat Tulane by more than 20. That team is an absolute juggernaut right now, and
like Eric said, fourth right now in the net rankings behind only Michigan, Gonzaga, and Baylor, and Gonzaga and Baylor are undefeated right now at 15-0. So, right now, well, this is obviously check the result when you get it, but as of this recording, they're up 28 points on Tulane.
I like their chances to hold on.
Yeah, so chance in the second half. So I'm feeling pretty good about that one. So who's going to step through? I mean, Eric, I think you're right. I think this may very well be a one bid league unless someone in this month goes on a run. Now that's entirely possible, but given how uneven the schedule has been with delays, postponements, and whatnot, it's so hard to get momentum if you're a team. I mean, Houston has played 9 conference games. They and Tulsa are the only schools that have played 9 conference games so far, and they haven't had that many postponements due to COVID. And I think that's helped contribute to it because they got hot, they figured things out, and they're just riding the wave right now.
Yeah, whereas UCF's been disrupted with it, and I think you've seen it on the court. They're still trying to figure things out, and even
not the only ones either around the
country. Yeah, and I mean, even Jameel Reynolds. It was interesting. I remember Dawkins mentioned in the postgame that Jameel Reynolds is starting to kind of catch up because remember, and Murph, I remember you asked Dawkins about this before the season started about the freshmen not having that rep before the season, not having the workouts and the practices that you normally would have. And that's, that it's not an accident. You see teams like Kentucky and Duke who have a lot of freshmen that are struggling. Dawkins mentioned this to you, Murph, before the year. Freshmen in a lot of these programs are struggling because they're playing catch up most of the year.
Absolutely. And it's going to be something you sort of have to prepare for and deal with the rest of the season. Again, this virus is not stopping. We're having games basically postponed every day now in this conference and certainly across college basketball. Like to just take Wednesday as an example. UCF played against ECU. There were supposed to be 3 AAC games that night scheduled, and 2 of them were postponed. It's just something you're gonna have to deal with. And for freshmen to sort of really, really take value and treasure these reps when they come.
Yeah. Well, I will say, though, to his credit, Jameel Reynolds, I thought looked really good against ECU. We saw a little bit of his ability to get to make some space underneath, And I'm trying to pull up his. There he is. He in 11 minutes, 3 of 5 from the field, 3 of 4 at the line, 9 points, 4 rebounds. So, boy, I can't wait until they get him in the weight room. And next year, he and Isaiah Adams are going to be real problems for teams.
I mean, it's a good inside-outside foundation, and then you have the point guard coming in. It's Darius Johnson, the point guard coming into UCF as well. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
The best part is when you're talking to your point guard, you just say hey Darius, and that's the guy. Nothing changes there. Sorry, that's a terrible dad joke.
Wow.
All right, let's
catch that, Murph. Did you just see what he tried to pull there with the Darius joke there?
Awful.
I didn't. I'm sure. It seems like I know it's weird for me not to be paying attention to Jeff, but
Thanks.
I guess it's okay that I didn't hear it, so it's fine.
It was Darius.
Okay,
This year's point guard is Darius. Next year's Darius.
Yes, we get it.
Let's move on. We're going to take a break. And when we return, special guest on the show, John Roddick, UCF's director of tennis and head men's tennis coach, joins Eric Lopez to preview their upcoming season. Well, it's not upcoming. It's already started. John Roddick when we return. This is the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Welcome back to the show. Jeff, Eric, and Brian with you here, recording this on Thursday night, January 28th. Still lots to talk about here for UCF Sports, but it is tennis season. It is underway. And we talked last week with Brian Kanyeko, the women's tennis head coach for UCF, and now we get to talk to his cohort and boss, the director of tennis at UCF and the men's tennis head coach, John Roddick. Eric Lopez, you talked to John. Last year, 10-3 when the season got cut short. They had won 8 matches in a row against the likes of Texas Tech, Illinois, Virginia, San Diego. They had their RPI was actually looking pretty good, even with some losses that they had to Gainesville, to Florida rather, UCLA and Wake. But they kind of had, like so many other programs at UCF, right? Kind of had their knees cut out from underneath them by COVID, and at a year where I think they expected to really go deep into the NCAA tournament. So what's the situation now with the team, which they start their season on actually tomorrow, that's Friday, January 29th, against number 11 Florida, playing everybody in-state, playing a lot of in-state before we get to the latter part of the schedule. Is this their time to make that run that they've been waiting to do now for a few years?
It certainly looks that way. Of course, they got everybody back. Tremendous talent and the highest ranking in team program history, 16th going into this season. That's what director of tennis, UCF tennis, and head coach John Roddick, certainly, who told me when I spoke to him that he actually doesn't think they've reached their peak yet, thinks there are actually better days ahead for the program. We talked about that, and of course, dealing with the current climate that is, scheduling, and what is that like to be the role of director of tennis and having 2 top 25 teams to basically oversee. Here now, John Roddick on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. And joining us now, of course, he's the director of tennis and the head men's tennis head coach at UCF. Of course, arrived here on May 29th, 2016. And, of course, UCF's ranked 16th in the country as they will open the season Friday, January 29th at home against number 9 ranked Florida. I speak of John Roddick, who joins us back here on the Black and Gold Banneret. Coach, how you doing?
Hey there, how are you? Good, thanks for having me on.
I'm curious in your thoughts, and we had Brian on recently, and I asked him the same question: is what has been your thoughts overall about the program, and what's unique with you, obviously, as being the head coach of men's tennis and the director of tennis, is you oversee both tennis programs, and here you are, both of you ranked in the top 25 in the preseason going into the season, highest ranked for both programs with high expectations. What's your thoughts here now, overall, on the state of UCF tennis for both programs?
Well, I think we've come a long ways. Number one, since the beginning, we both took over different challenges, and we were in a big transition phase with moving our facilities out to the USGA national campus. And there was just a lot of moving parts going on, and the players don't necessarily feel that. That's more on our end as coaches and administrators. So now that we're settled in. young teams. The recruiting has been, for both programs as good as any teams in the nation, especially over the last 4 years. So I think we're both positioned well to move forward. And, in fact, it's kind of, they're eerily similar situations, as far as the way we're positioned right now.
And it's been interesting, obviously, with a lot of the recent news. I've been thinking back to your arrival here, and that was kind of a huge story in college tennis at the time. Obviously, joining Danny White, bringing you in here, and kind of visioning a UCF tennis program that was not certainly at the level it is currently now. I don't know if you've had time to reflect on it. You probably have not because you've been busy. But as you look back on that, from your arrival here and coming in, what has been your thoughts, obviously, with the recent news as you've kind of now, here you are a few years later, and this tennis program has made the progress that it has?
Yeah, I feel like we've got a ways to go, but at the same time, I feel like it's just time, and are you going to win some of the close matches? I know we're going to be on both the men's and the women, that we're going to be in the conversation. We're going to be competing for conference championships, competing to do well at the NCAAs. And I think competing for national championships in the near future. So that's exciting. I don't think as coaches we're very good at sitting there and reflecting on, what caught and not doing as well as you want to. I think that happens more with us sometimes. We're always trying to look forward and what do we need to do next. I don't know that it really helps us that much to look back. But while we're talking about it, there's a lot of work that went into that a lot of our players can be proud of, and the administration can be proud of for having the vision to, get us in here and let us do our jobs. I think that's where Danny was, really, really effective. Obviously he's done for hiring the coaches he's hired. To do that, you've got to let them do their jobs the way they do it. And he's really done a good job. I think every coach in the department would say that.
Describe, for those that may not be aware, you're the director of tennis. Describe what your job with when you wear that hat as opposed to just being a head coach.
Yeah, it's somewhat unique to tennis. I'm sure golf could do it or some other sports could. In tennis, we've had it around the country where one program or maybe a particular coach has done a really good job on their program, and they might either give somebody the director of tennis job title at the university they're at, or if they're being hired away, which is even probably the more common way maybe it happens to entice somebody to come, is where you have a little bit of a dual hat where you have administrative oversight, so to speak, of the women's team. We still have the administrators that we that both of us report to and stuff like on certain things, and as an administrator or someone with a coach, I always look at it from my lens, which is still the coaching. UCF's been great with that, in allowing me to do that and still have the oversight. So it can probably be set up a little differently, in each place. But it's not something that's overly common, but it's not extremely rare either. So I'm fortunate to have been in that position, and that just I like having responsibilities and adding that, and being able to hire Brian. They gave me a really a lot of autonomy, and Brian was a coach who was in the Ivy League and had taken over a struggling program, but he'd done incredible work at Ohio State with the women, and I knew that, and I recognized that even though his head coaching record at Brown, someone would say, well, why would you hire that person? And and I think that's where I could really help, and really having the voice in the room to say, look, this is the guy to help us. This is our, and so I think that was, for me, that was fun. And so that's kind of the difference as far as a director of tennis versus a head coach. As a head coach, you definitely have input on the other genders. If they're doing a coaching search, you're going to still have a lot of input. Whereas with me, I just, really said I'd like to hire this guy, and I had to get approval to do that. So for me, it was a fun thing to do, because a lot of coaches don't get that opportunity to run a coaching search, and so that was exciting.
What's the biggest thing you've learned from that, having that title as you were kind of going through? Was there anything that caught you off guard that you didn't expect, or was it pretty much what you thought when you took that role specifically?
Yeah, going through the search part of it, is how much you're on the phone. For any sport, I can't imagine what athletic directors have to go through. As far as a football hire goes, or the high-profile hires. I guess it doesn't have to be just football, but it's a lot of work and making sure, a lot of responsibility, making sure you bring in not just a quality coach, but a quality person to run those programs. It's a big responsibility to be, in charge of that many young people. And there's a lot that goes into it that you don't necessarily realize until you do it.
Brian mentioned that his players obviously support the men. There's support on both sides. They watch them, and in a way, it's a healthy competition because you're both, you're trying to bring the best out of each other. You're both shooting for the goals that you have, being ranked, conference championships. Do you sense that as overseeing both that there's that healthy competition from the two programs that helps each other and kind of support each other?
Yeah, you definitely feel it. I mean, my first year we had more success just based on what was going on in the program, and we started rebuilding more after the first year, where we had on the men's side we had a good year and made the NCAA tournament and made a huge jump in year one. But we just had this before we brought in some transfers, and we had a couple older guys on the team that were current that really contributed, and we were able to have a good year, whereas Brian had to rebuild from year one. And so we kind of started off quicker, and then they passed us, and now we're right there. I know our guys, definitely recognize that we were one or two spots. I don't even know what. I think they're 18 maybe, and we're 16, and but there's definitely a healthy competition. I mean, they're definitely aware, and it's not anything malicious. They just take pride in it, and it's bragging rights for them because both teams are doing well, and and we're kind of on the same trajectory at the moment, and so.
Yeah, no question. We're speaking with John Roddick here on Black and Gold Banneret. Let's talk about your team. Obviously, you were 10-3 in 2020 when the season came to an end. As unfortunate as that was, can you take positives there and some of that momentum you were building in 2020? Can that carry over to 2021?
It's definitely carrying over. I mean, I see it. It was very, one of the more disappointing things that I've gone through. There's probably maybe seasons you have, and other teams are in a position where you're like, I'm glad the season's over if it's not going the way you wanted it. And we were going, it was going the way we wanted it to go. I mean, we lost one tough one at UCLA 4-3 that we'd like to have back, but we won on the road at Virginia, on the road at Illinois. And these are historic programs that we were beating on the road, and so that we knew we were positioned to have to have a chance to be in the top 10 and. Make a deep run in the NCAA tournament, and we started to play at that level. And the thing I liked is even when we didn't play well, we were winning matches fairly convincingly. And that's when as a coach, I recognize that's when we have a pretty good team. And so it was unfortunate not to finish, but we'll pause it here and keep doing what you're doing wherever you're at throughout this. And now that they've come back, they're very motivated to keep going, and the team's been together at this point for a while now, and so we have a very mature team that knows each other. So it's they handled it well, and we just said, look, this is an opportunity. We proved to ourselves, and that last year we were still searching. Do we belong? Do we belong? And I think we proved it to ourselves that we did. And so this year, they're just hungry to go out and prove it to everybody else. I don't think they have that doubt, which is a nice transition.
How did the fact that the spring athletes got an extra year of eligibility, from the NCAA, how did that affect you from a roster standpoint and from a recruiting standpoint as far as the sport of tennis?
Well, we were fortunate that we didn't have any seniors on the team, so we didn't have that problem where you've signed, some high school seniors that are coming in, and then you have, seniors that from a scholarship standpoint that were exiting. And finishing their eligibility, and so all of a sudden they get an extra year, and then you have that financial pinch on athletic departments, and you want to give everyone that's been with you the opportunity to come back, especially when they've done things right and they've been good teammates and all that. But at the same time, in college sports, you want to keep moving on and bring in the new fresh faces, and so you're caught, and it's really more of a financial thing, which I think everybody experiencing COVID in one way or another has definitely been affected. And so luckily for us, we didn't have to make any of those really hard decisions and having those hard conversations that a lot of student athletes have had to have with their coaches or administrations around the country. And, so we were very fortunate in that where everybody could come back in, and, we were just in a good position with that. So, we were, from a scholarship standpoint anyway, we had some new faces, but it didn't affect our scholarship situation. So we were very lucky on the men's side.
And having that experience back, and I know you got some new faces we'll talk about, but having that core of an experience back, has that helped you through this unique circumstances as you kind of navigate through all this, as get set for the season, as opposed to if you would have had a younger team and kind of try to kind of blend in?
I'm very thankful that our team was going to be mostly juniors and seniors. There's, before the coach, and now we're still sophomores and juniors, but I'm very thankful that they were older at that point, or at least kind of mid-range, because I think if this happened with a young team, where everybody on the team is young, and you're not sure that, they start learning their identity, what they need to do as players, as people, just to stay organized in their life. I think a lot of the COVID stuff was harder on the student athletes outside of the sport, because at least the sport, if they were at home and they were in a situation after some of the lockdowns, for 2 weeks to 4 weeks, whatever they faced, it depended for us, it depended on what country they went back to, as far as how long they could go. But once they were able to go to their clubs, or go to find a tennis court to go play on a park, and they could get that routine back, that really helped them. I think it was harder out, on the academic, all of a sudden tutors or everything's virtual. So I think it was very hard, and athletes are used to structure, and when you lose that, it can become very difficult, and you end up doing things that maybe you shouldn't be doing. And so with our older kids, we didn't have any of that. We had a couple meetings. We weren't even a team that had to do a bunch of Zoom. We did some Zoom meetings, but we weren't having to do these every day. We would do them once every week or two, just kind of as needed, because guys were okay. I mean, they were doing well, and they were like, "No, coach, I'm doing fine. Don't worry about it." So we were really lucky with that, with the maturity.
Let's talk about some of your players on your roster, starting with Gabriel DeCamps. Ranked 16th now in singles, was the first singles All-American in program history in 2020. He's ranked 12th in doubles alongside Gracia. But I want us to talk about Gabriel. What makes him so good?
Yeah, his drive. He works really hard. His desire. He wants to be the best player he can be. He wants to play at a pro level. He goes about it that way. And I think that, he has a huge forehand. He moves well. He's tall, so he's got a lot of physical attributes. And that's what makes him. He's one of the best players in the country, and he's a guy that when we play, I know we always have a chance to win at number one singles, and you can't always say that. I mean, if you're playing let's say you're playing the number one player in the country, and you're going up, a lot of times you're not going to be in a good shape in that. And Gabe can play at that level, so he always has a chance, and that's always a nice thing to have there.
A lot of fans got to see him in November on ESPNU on national TV at the Oracle IT National Fall Championships, where he lost to Trey Hildebrand, his buddy, in 3 sets in a singles match. Some might have been surprised. Trey's been tremendous in doubles. What was it like for you to watch that? I know there weren't the only 2 players in that tournament, but what was it like for you to see those guys having the success they did in that tournament and going against each other in the championship?
Yeah, that was a special moment, and then at the same time it's COVID, so you got to be honest with yourself. Not all the players in the country were there. It typically would be in that event, but having said that, it was still a very strong field. I would kind of equate it from a field. We have our regional events, and then we have our national events, and this would have been a strong regional event, and so I was very proud of the guys, of the wins they got there, and then playing each other in the finals, a 3-setter. They played well, and for Trey, more so than Gabe, I mean, he really proved that he can make a huge jump. And so that I was happy to see that. Sadly, at the expense of Gabe, on that one, it was, that's makes it hard to watch. But at the same time, you're happy for Trey.
Yeah, and we had Trey on right after he won that. I was so impressed with him. I mean, he talked about the confidence, giving him confidence as a singles player, because up until, he's been tremendous as doubles, but, he's been searching for confidence at times as a singles player. Can that run on a tournament like that, can that boost him in the singles here moving forward the rest of his career?
Yeah, it has. I mean, that definitely happens in our sport. And Trey was, a top American recruit. I think he was as high as, I don't remember exactly, 2 or 3 on the American recruiting list. So he's got the experience, he's got the ability in singles. He had a broken wrist in the fall. He had a good freshman year, not a great freshman year, and then he was starting to do well, and then he broke his wrist. That really slowed. The timing was unfortunate, and it didn't heal quickly. He had just some of those, just unfortunate things go on. So that slowed him down last year. And honestly, when COVID, he really improved his forehand. He calls it his COVID forehand. So he's made light of it a little bit in that regard, where he realizes that not playing and not having tournaments helps his game. And so he used it. He did a great job. He transformed his body from a fitness standpoint, and he really transformed his forehand. So he's done a really nice job. Just using what ended up happening and benefiting from it.
No question. Let's talk about the rest of your roster. What stands out from the rest of your roster? I mentioned Juan Pablo Gracia. Obviously, he's doubles with Gabe. They're a tremendous tandem. I want to start with what makes them such a good tandem, and then kind of tell us a little bit about the rest of the roster here as you try to kind of fit the pieces here for the season starting.
Yeah, well, Mizuchi's a very good singles player as well. Played two and had a great record there. And again, he's a guy who's got the experience who can compete with anyone in the nation. Him and Gabe in doubles have played great. It doesn't mean I'm even going to keep them together this year. I know they're ranked 12. I mean, your doubles pairings can change year to year. So as coaches, we don't pay too close of attention to the ranking. We're trying to win the point, and whatever we need to do to get that done, we'll do. And so we know we have a good team with them. Trey and Bogdan, Pavel have played together in doubles. So, and you go, Bogdan is playing like 4, 5, and 6 singles. And, we know we can win in every spot, whether it's Sokolovsky or Pavel, Trey, Rubio, another really good singles player for us who's played. He really came on at number 3 last year. And, he's the one that really turned some matches that we didn't necessarily expect him to win because they weren't matches that he'd won in the past, and he turned it. That's what really, I think Alan really turned it around for us and started getting us over the hump in some tough matches. So we're excited because we know we can win in every spot. Doesn't mean we will every single time, but we know we have the ability to win in each spot, and so that we don't have any holes. So that's nice.
And you mentioned veteran team. You got, I think, one freshman on the roster, which I think is Quinn Snyder, who was a 5-star, was ranked 47th in his recruiting class. What does he bring to your program?
He's a really hard worker. I mean, him and Gabe are probably the two hardest workers, at least, from a focus standpoint, that we have on the team. We're trying to redshirt Quinn this year. Hopefully we can do that with COVID. You never know how many guys you're going to have out all of a sudden. Just like any team, even in college times, we've had a rash of teams all of a sudden pull out of the kickoff weekend, including ourselves. So we understand that it's kind of all hands on deck this year, more so than any other year. We're proud of it. We know Quinn long term. He's got size. He's got a lot of ability and strength to do a lot of things and play at a high level. So we're hopeful on his progress.
Have you noticed that as you've gotten into this, the recruiting, and what have been some of the things that we talked about in the past about the facilities and the center, the National Tennis Center helping you in recruiting? Have you noticed that now that the impact of that more guys like a Quinn can come here and make that an impact to the program that maybe would not have, say, 6-7 years ago?
Yeah, I think being in Florida, I don't have a ton. I mean, especially in Georgia, and we had a lot of players that would come, like in-state players that would end up walking on because it was still their best. We're not a full scholarship sport typically anyway. So, and Quinn kind of falls into that category. But we're hopeful he can be a starter. When I was in Oklahoma, we didn't have any in-state talent. I think I had one starter from Oklahoma in 7 years that I was there. And this player had moved to Florida and trained in Florida. So really, actually when he first came back, his first year, he was still considered a Florida resident, even though he's from, Oklahoma. So, that for me has been a nice luxury to have. We get players all the time that want to come here just because it's Orlando, because it's Central Florida, and just be in the area. They've got family in the area. They spend time in the area. It's easy to get to whether you're American, international. So that's been a nice luxury to have a squad deeper than, say, 8 players. I mean, unfortunately, I'm having to tell people no because they don't have roster spots, and they're good players, and so we're that I'm very lucky, in that regard.
It's a good problem to have, right? Too many options.
It is. Turning some good players away that's a good problem. Yes, it's unfortunate sometimes. I wish we could, but at the same time, we can't manage that many people either with our staff. So we gotta be careful.
Yeah. What was it like as you made this schedule with the climate that it is? Because you've always scheduled tough, and you still schedule tough. We'll get into some of the opponents, but what was it like as you kind of figured out this schedule with obviously the climate that we're in and certain everybody dealing with kind of what they can do and cannot do?
Yeah, it was tough because we had the best teams in the Big Ten coming out. We had Michigan, Illinois, Minnesota playing them here. in March, which is a good advantage for us because they've been indoors and we get a chance to get them outside right away. And they decided to do pretty much conference only outside of any national events. So we lost all those matches. We lost a home match with Texas, who I guess is still technically the defending national champion. So those hurt our home schedule, but it was just constantly readjusting. I'm always trying to do the schedule. When I finally finished the schedule and I looked and I'm like, man, it's January of 21 and I only have 4 matches done for 22 right now because it's just been maneuvering. We can't play here or this guy. So all the coaches around the country, we don't always see eye to eye on everything, but everyone has just understood, like, we have to move stuff around and we have to be flexible. And so, that's been a good thing to see around the country. All the coaches have been trying to help each other out with scheduling because it's just, we know we need to have good schedules and everyone is as much as we can't always make it work, but everyone's been really flexible. And, so we've been able to save our schedule and we still have a top-notch schedule. So we're fortunate. So, hopefully that everyone's able to come and play.
Yeah, and right from the get-go, I mentioned you got Florida, then South Florida. You're going to Miami just to start off, and then I know you go to Florida State, and then I know one that's going to be talked about nationally will be March 27th, UCF at Oklahoma. I know that's furthest thing in your mind, but that's going to be one that people have circled in college tennis world.
Yeah, and that's one where we were flexible. Kind of what I was talking about. They had a date. We were in the area, and typically you don't want to go. We're going back-to-back days. Excuse me. And, Oklahoma's in the middle, so it's tough to prepare where you don't get as much hitting time on those courts and stuff like that. But I say, guys, let's just play. And, we did it. A little bit of experience. We did it 5 years ago. My first year, we added a match, and we added a Baylor match. It was back-to-back. We had TCU, SMU, and Baylor. And we played our best match. We ended up losing to Baylor, but they were 4 in the country, and we lost 4-3, I think. And we almost won the match, and it was the last part of that trip. And I was like, we can do this. Like, we can go and play 3 good matches. And in that one, we lost all 3, but actually the way we played, it helped us in the end. And we were a better team coming out of that. And so, I'm just trying to draw on that experience and just say, guys, like, we expect wins this time, but we also know that we can go out and play well. If we play well, then that's what matters.
Yeah, no doubt. A couple last things. Obviously, what has it been like for you as someone who has been in all levels of tennis? We've talked in the past about your role in the ATP and being around there with your brother, and now seeing what tennis has had to go through for the last year, not just in the college game, but in the pro game, even as we talk with the Australian Open and the protocols and things like that. What has been your thoughts as someone who has lived and breathed this sport and how they've been and how you've been able to navigate that? It's not just in the college game, but you've seen the pro circuit.
Yeah, the U.S. Open did a great job of getting that in. That was a great effort. It looked great on TV. They didn't really have fans, so that was the whole point, was to look good on TV. And then the French Open got in. So to get those 2 Grand Slams in, obviously in our sport, those are the most important things. So I do feel like we missed a little bit of an opportunity of getting back earlier. Golf got back early, NASCAR got back early. I remember that first race, and it was like the first live event. I haven't watched a NASCAR race since I don't know when, and probably been 15 years. And all of a sudden, I was tuned into that because that was it. Like, that was what there was to watch. So I do feel like it's not all positive necessarily, and I'm going to be honest with that. I do feel like we missed an opportunity. We're a distant sport. We're not all over each other out there on the court, and so I feel it's TV friendly. Singles matches are very TV friendly, and I feel like we missed an opportunity. But having said that, the Slams did a good job. I don't think Wimbledon really had a choice. I think they had to do what they had to do. They had the insurance policy, so they knew. And with the grass, you just can't say, okay, let's go play. The grass has to be ready.
Right.
And there's only a certain time of year over there where the grass is actually ready. So their window closed. There was nothing they could do. And then the USTA did a really nice job getting the Open played. And then once they got into it, it was great. But I just do feel like we could have been out there maybe a month or 6 weeks early. I don't know the timeline exactly, but some of us had talked about it, like, but it's risky. You don't know what you're dealing with, so it's not to criticize anybody. But I do think the sports that got back earlier, like golf and NASCAR, really benefited from that.
it seemed like somebody was waiting to see who could pull the trigger first, and it was the USTA with the U.S. Open. And I think since they were successful, I felt like that kind of allowed everybody else to say, all right, let's try it. I felt like. Did you feel that?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Yeah, because when they went to the tournament, then they hosted. So the USTA said, okay, well, we'll just play everything here. So they had the Cincinnati event, and at the USTA event as well. They played that there, and so that was, and they weren't having all these additional COVID case. I mean, obviously there would be one here or there, but it was very, very minimal, and so it was just proving that they could do it in a safe manner. And they did it, and they did a great job. It looked great on TV. I can't remember what their ratings were, but I was watching it. I was impressed. It was like, wow, this is good that we're able to do this.
Yeah, and the Australian Open will start actually a couple weeks later than normal. They'll be starting on Super Bowl Sunday, and going 2 weeks, which I kind of like. So hopefully we just get the tennis going, both on the pros and the college game, and that's what's so exciting, Coach. It's an exciting deal. Last question: what's going to be the keys for your team once you get on the court and get going on the matches? What's the keys for you all to accomplish your internal goals?
Yeah, I think for us that I talked to our guys just about controlling themselves and understanding what they need to do, not relying on whether it's your parents or coaches or whoever. We're an individual sport, and it's up to you, and so them and dealing with adversity so they can, understand what they need to do and take charge. I mean, we always tell them what they need to do, and we try to guide them that way, but once they really take that and run, kind of like you alluded to Trey earlier, where he did it with his conditioning, and he really made a huge jump in it, and he got a benefit to do those kind of things, and then deal with adversity. Bad things are going to happen on the court. Probably the same goes for any sport. The other guy's going to play well. They're going to win a set, but it's how do you deal with that? And we've been, that was 3 years ago, we struggled in that department. If we keep doing that like we were starting to last year, then, if we can do those two things, I don't think for us it's any more about hitting the ball and, that level. We have that level. It's going to be between the ears. And so if we can understand that and be really tough between the ears, we're going to have a good year.
Well, we're looking forward to it, seeing it get going once again, and it's going to be an exciting season. John Roddick, Director of Tennis and Men's Tennis Coach at UCF, joining us. Coach, thank you so much for taking the time. I know it's a busy time as the season gets going, and good luck on the court, and we hope to do this again down the road.
Okay, no worries. Thank you.
And thanks again to John Roddick for joining us. Great extensive talk there. And thanks to Kenny Landis, Media Relations, knocking it out with with Coach Roddick there. But really fascinating interview to talk about so many different topics, being the director of tennis, why he brought in Brian, and the fact that Danny White and the administration giving John Roddick the autonomy to make the hires, you're right, being the boss and basically allowing him. And that's what he has enjoyed from that role of director of tennis. It doesn't exist many places. He didn't have, and that's one of the reasons why he came to UCF, leaving Oklahoma, which, by the way, if you look at the schedule, I mentioned it during the interview, at the end of March, I believe it's the end of March, UCF goes to Oklahoma. Return of John Roddick there. That's a big story in college tennis there. But, man, they're exciting. They got a lot of talent. Gabriel DeCamps, in company there. They got All-American singles. They got a lot of talent. Everybody's back. I mean, Quinn Snyder's a 5-star recruit, and you heard
not that Quinn Snyder,
not the basketball coach, the tennis player from Durand, New Jersey. Is a top 5-star, top 50 ranked player in recruiting, and he's trying to see if he can maybe redshirt him. That's how deep they are. So, really exciting time for them and the tennis program, and they're not going to start easy right off the bat against a really good Florida team. So we'll see how things go, but it's great to have tennis back.
Well, this is what I think is interesting about their schedule. They do not leave the state of Florida until March 26th. They go to SMU for a conference match in Dallas, and it's a road trip where they go Dallas, SMU in 3 days. They're at SMU, at Oklahoma State before they come back on the last day of March to play Wake Forest at home. And then they, again, don't leave Orlando the rest of the year because the American Athletic Conference Tournament is in Orlando this year, April 23rd through the 25th. So how about that for scheduling? They do have some road, obviously they're going to Coral Gables to play Miami. They're going to Jacksonville to play North Florida. They're playing FAU and Boca, but still, those are bus trips. Tallahassee on March 19th. But only one actual true road trip for them in the schedule. And it's against two good teams in Oklahoma and Oklahoma State, and then they get to come back and finish out the season basically right here at home. They do have a trip to South Florida on April 3rd, but they're finishing out the season at home, and they have the conference championship at home. It lines up. It lines up for them this year, doesn't it?
It does line up. They got the talent, but they got to put it together on the court. You've heard him before say it. He said it again on this show. Rankings don't really mean anything right now. It's all about performing and but you're right. They have the experience. It really does line up to have a chance to be a special year. Obviously, you got to be a little lucky this year, obviously, and dodge some, obviously some health stuff. You got to stay healthy. So, but you're right. It's lined up perfectly. And remember, a couple of years ago when they were in the NCAA tournament, they lost a controversial match in the opening round. Otherwise, they could have made a deep run in the tournament. So hopefully maybe they can make a run like the women's did 2 years ago when the women got to the Sweet 16. I think that's the potential for this team.
Hey, well, I'm looking forward to seeing what this team does. And I think the fact that we're going to see them at home for quite a bit is going to be a tremendous help to this program this year. And it starts Friday against number 11 Florida, preseason number 11 Florida, at home at the USTA National Campus down on Lake Nona. So, and then right after that, South Florida on January 31st on Sunday.
And by the way, the home matches are streamed at USTAnationalcampus.com. So you can actually watch men's and women's UCF tennis. The links are up on UCFnights.com. But if you go to, it's on the USTA National Campus. They will be streaming all the matches.
Now, they allow you to watch, to skip between all the courts, right?
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah.
That sounds right.
If it's how I've seen it before, it's really cool how they do it, where you can click whichever court you want to see, because there's matches. For singles, of course, there's 6 matches going on at once, and then for doubles, there's 3 matches going on at once. So, so you get your chance to kind of skip back and forth and see which match is close. It's really great. So I do encourage everybody to take a look at the streams when you get the chance to see it. Again, their first match of the season this Friday, January 29th, 5 p.m. against the Florida Gators at the USTA National Campus. When we return here on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast, we will go through some updates from volleyball. Women's volleyball is underway. Women's tennis is underway. Some watch listers for men's soccer, and a record broken in cross country before we wrap it up here on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff Sharon, Eric Lopez, Brian Murphy with you here. Let us get you updated as we are now hitting the throttle on these fall/spring sports here. Thanks to COVID, obviously. And I want to start with volleyball. The UCF volleyball team is off to a 1-0 start on the season. They defeated FAU in the opener in the venue on Tuesday. By the way, they played 2 against FAU, but the match on Monday was an exhibition. UCF won that 4-0 because they just play 4 sets because they can get them in and get some backup, some work. But UCF beat FAU 3-1 on Tuesday, dropped the first one, but came back and I think really showed their offensive strength in the final 3 sets, hit 375, 440, and 417, and held FAU to 122 for the match hitting and under 100 for the final 3 sets. Leaders for UCF, McKenna Melville had 13 kills, and she was pretty quiet for much of the match until she got to the 4th set, and then she decided, all right, let's go ahead and just end this thing right now. Anne-Marie Watson, I thought they kind of went after her on defense a little bit, and what they were saying was after the match was, Anne-Marie kind of, in previous years, this is how much she's matured, guys, is before if her defense would struggle a bit, it would bleed over into her offense, but that wasn't the case in this match. She had 11 kills, and Mackenzie Chambers was just outstanding. Of course, last year she was a freshman, right? Looked really good on the right side, and then kind of ran out of gas, and Allie Sable stepped in and kind of took over that spot. But in this match, 10 kills on 13 swings, 615 hitting. That's amazing when you think about it. UCF got some contributions from some other newcomers, including Tali Marmon, who was outstanding, I thought, defensively, had 5 key digs. Amber Olson, 23 assists, 11 digs for UCF. And we saw a little bit of that 6-2 that we were talking about with Todd. Remember in the preseason, Eric? So we saw Amber Olsen and Drezi Pass working that 6-2. And a big shout out to Ariana Arjamon, too, who the transfer from Wichita State comes over to UCF to play libero. She played for Tanya Jarvis at Bishop Moore, comes back home, and in her first match for UCF, 5 digs, but she was a really steady, a really steady presence out there. 8 assists also for her and playing all 4 sets. So props out to Ariana in her first match for UCF. And the Knights are 1-0. They are, and next up will be, of course, here we are with this weird schedule. They were supposed to play tonight against Stetson, but that got canceled. So their next match, they have 2 against UNF back-to-back, Saturday and Sunday. Saturday at 7, Sunday at 5 at the venue. So, again, kicking off this non-conference schedule, it's a good win for UCF against FAU, who's missing a lot of people. So, first of all, they had a roster that was massively depleted by graduation, and then their two of their top players didn't make the trip. So, FAU is kind of in a rough spot right there, but they're a pretty tough team, and I think they're in a good sort of rebuilding. Well, good. I think they're ahead of their rebuild than they want to be. So, so props to them. Hopefully, they can help out our RPI the rest of the year, and hopefully UNF can do the same when UCF plays them on January 30th and 31st. So, women's tennis, Eric Lopez, off to a bit of a slow start. They are 0-2 on the season. Having started the season, now they started out on last Sunday against Wake Forest, at Wake Forest, or rather, no, they were at NC State, but they were playing Wake Forest, and they lose 4-3, and then they lost to NC State 4-0. But those are the 16 and 8 teams respectively in the rankings. So
top 20 teams.
Yeah, helps out the RPI though, and then they're going to be home again tomorrow. Right before the men play, they're going to be home against Florida, and Florida's ranked number 21. So they've got some work to do here to get back in the winning side, don't they?
They do, but again, that's 2 top 20 teams. We had Brian on the show last week. We talked about the tough schedule, and they got off to that Wake Forest was could go either way. Tough loss, and I wonder if they were maybe a little emotionally drained after that Wake Forest match. Because NC State took it to them, but it's early in the season, no big deal. Now they got Florida at home on Friday, as you mentioned, and of course Georgia Southern on Saturday. So I'll be curious how they bounce back, and I'll be watching the stream in there. So, but they're fine. I think they'll be fine. It's just they tested themselves 2 basically de facto road matches, in the way I look at it, and could have easily gotten a split. It was very close, but it's early.
Yeah, interesting. Against Wake, they swept the doubles point. But the key was on court number 1, Anna Campana of Wake Forest got the victory over Valeria Zaleva, and Anna Breland of Wake beat Ksenia Kuznetsova, and Casey Wooten Rebecca Stolmar won her match, and so did Marie Mattel. But Casey Wooten for Wake, a couple of these matches went to tiebreakers, or had sets that went to tiebreakers, and it was that close. It was just that close, and it ended up on the number 5 court. And Casey won. Jaleesa Leslie of UCF won the second set in a tiebreaker to get it to a third, and then Wooten won 7-5 in the third. So it was tight. It was tight the whole way against Wake. So I think this team can play, and we're going to see if how they bounce back against number 21 Florida on Friday. All right, moving along. Some soccer news you wanted to pass along. Yoni Sorokin and Giannis Learman have been named to the Mac Herman Trophy Award watch list for UCF men's soccer. They start their season with they had an exhibition against FIU on Tuesday. They lost 2-0, but it's an exhibition. Don't panic.
Who cares?
February 6th, Saturday, they played Tulsa. But how about these two guys, Sorokin and Learman, getting some preseason Mac Herman consideration for this team? The most exciting soccer team in North America, UCF men's soccer.
They become the 4th and 5th UCF player in the men's soccer program to earn get on the watch list for the Mac Herman Trophy, joining obviously Cal Jennings, and Louis Perez and Warren Crevel. Crevel is those are the previous guys. No men's player has ever won the award. Obviously, we know who on the women's side who wanted the original, the GOAT. Michelle Akers won the original Herman Watch trophy there, which she talked about on this show, Black and Gold Banneret. How many times have we mentioned that, Murph? How many times have we mentioned we've had Michelle Akers on the show? I don't know, we're bragging a little bit, but just saying.
Wait, is there supposed to be a limit? Like, could we?
No, there is no. That is a bucket list item. I'm so happy that we talked to Michelle Akers.
Seriously, like, go ahead, man. We're probably we'll probably repost that episode here as we get closer to the soccer season. We'll hope to have Coach Sahedek and Coach Calabrese on. But man, it's exciting to have the soccer seasons. It kind of a stunner, real quick. No MLS draft last week. No UCF players taken. Kind of bummed for some of the players, especially Louis Perez. I thought that they had a chance to get drafted. The good news, from a UCF standpoint, is the fact you don't have to deal with the questions. Well, if the guy gets drafted, is he going to play? Is he not going to play? You know, the team's rights. Although there's some talk actually that the MLS season might be delayed anyway. They might have a lockout. So, but it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting questions with this team. Yeah, I don't read too much in exhibitions because you're usually experimenting stuff. So we'll see when it starts for real. But what's wild is they're going to start for real straight out in conference play. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah. UCF, by the way, was picked second in the conference behind SMU.
So I was wondering, I was looking for that. Yeah. And so that's not a surprise. SMU's been the favorite.
SMU, man.
Yeah. Although now, both teams lost personnel, but yeah.
Only 6 teams in the league this year because UConn's gone. So, and I think it's the same rule with volleyball where you can't vote for yourself. The coaches all vote on the preseason ball. You can't vote for yourself. Correct. So I think SMU's coach voted for UCF. But Gabriel Costa of SMU is the offensive player of the year preseason. Pierre Cayette of Temple is the defensive player of the year. But Yannick Edel was the preseason goalkeeper of the year, and UCF had 5 players on the preseason all-conference team. Learman, Sorokin, Louis Perez, who you mentioned, Yannick Edel, the goalkeeper, and Gino Vivi, who the sophomore sensation, Eric Lopez, Gino Vivi. I know you have a soft spot for him.
We're going to get in him more once we do our soccer preview. I think he's a big key this season. Who's going to be the guy that steps into Cal Jennings' shoes and pick up score? And I think he is one of the top candidates to do that.
All right, so we'll be following.
Have the women come out with theirs?
Let me check here.
It's pretty wild. Well, why you do that? Because we're still waiting. Give me and Murph a little chance here, a brief moment here, Murph, to do a little baseball, softball chat here.
Oh my goodness!
We're still waiting. As we record this, the schedules are not out, but we've been told it's soon. We've been told it's soon.
The time draws nigh. The time draws nigh. Maybe as soon as tomorrow. It's
maybe by the time you're airing this episode. And by the way, if the rankings, once the schedules come out, don't you worry. Myself and Murph will be doing a night shift breaking down the schedules because, well, we've waited. How many months have we waited to talk baseball, UCF baseball and softball, Murph?
More than 10 now, right?
That's right. Going on 10. But some interesting news this week. Rankings. Baseball ranked 24th in the Baseball America. There's a lot of polls. I don't keep up. Which one was it?
18 college baseball polls.
They were. And again, Eric, you and I have talked about this. I wasn't really I don't really follow college baseball polls that closely because they don't really mean a whole lot.
For that very reason.
Yeah, but they did rank 24th in the Baseball America poll, which was one spot ahead of their ranking in another poll whose name escapes me. But again, it doesn't.
D1? Maybe it was. No, it wasn't D1. They weren't ranked D1. It was collegiate baseball, I think it was.
It was probably collegiate baseball mag. Yeah.
You know what I think, Murph? You should come out every week with your own college. But we should do a Black and Gold Banneret baseball poll. Everybody else has a poll.
I have a better idea. Let's not do that.
All right, fair enough. All right, well, softball, the NFCA poll and the ESPN USA poll came out. Softball was ranked 21st in the NFCA poll, 25th in the ESPN USA softball poll. Second time in program history that softball's been ranked in the preseason top 25. They were ranked 17th going into the 2016 season. So that's kind of a little bit of, again, kind of the expectation super high here with softball and even to some extent baseball, but definitely for softball with both polls. They'll be ranked in the top 25, and let's just say there'll be a few other ranked teams in the schedule, and we'll find that out when that comes out. But it'll get a wow. In fact, I'm gonna go bold here. When the schedule comes out, Murph, my prediction is that Jeff will give a big capital W-O wow with like a lot of exclamation points. He won't believe the schedule.
Now, Eric, let me ask you this about the softball rankings. Is that where you expected UCF to be?
Yeah, because softball, these voters for the most part are not very creative. So they basically, a lot of times what they do is they rank them where they basically finished in the previous season.
I'm just giving you a chance to rag on the polls.
Thank you. I would have put him in like the 16 to 20 range, but so I agree more with the NFCA at 21. That I think 25 is ridiculous, but it is what it is. We'll have plenty of time to get into this, but I just wanted to give Murph and myself a little bit of a taste, just a small little drip it as we anticipate minute by minute another day, and before we know it, first pitches will be thrown.
All right. All right. Last little news item that I want to pass along here.
We have some breaking news, by the way.
Oh, by the way, the on the women's soccer side, because that's why we took that little detour. UCF did have they haven't announced the preseason polls yet, but Kristen Scott and Ellie Moreno were named to the preseason all-conference team. So
what are they waiting on? That's a real big vote.
Wait. No, I beg your pardon. The UCF was here it is right here. UCF was selected to finish second by the league's coaches. And Memphis was number one with seven first place votes.
Wow. So we're picked ahead of USF, which makes sense. USF lost to be the greatest women's soccer player in their program history. She's now playing in the NWSL. So that's probably part of the reason for that. But that's good. Second place is good. I knew those rankings came out. This is what happens when everybody just keeps moving to Knoxville. We lose track of other news. Godly.
Right.
Stop. Can we get people to stop going to Knoxville?
Nobody is allowed to leave UCF for Knoxville, Tennessee for at least the next week, please. Last person.
Wait a minute. You're probably not going to get your wish on that.
Are you kidding me? Yeah. Anyway.
There'll be a few coaches that might disagree.
Yeah.
All right.
But again, we talked about that on the night shift. This should not be any news to anybody who's been following along.
By the way, last thing I want to mention here, and this is a big time shout out, Valerie Lastra. UCF opened up the cross country season this Saturday on campus. They actually start the cross country course at the softball complex, Eric. And now Valerie is a freshman, and she set a team rookie record in the 5K. 17 minutes, 43.6 seconds in the 5K on last Saturday. Broke a record held by Anne Marie Blaney back in 2012 is where Anne Marie set it. And Valerie, that's a freshman record for the 5K in cross country. And Valerie beat it. UCF won or came in third won their team match against South Florida and Florida Gulf Coast. But even despite the rain, UCF got the win in the UCF Invite. And congrats to Valerie on a new school freshman record, 17:43. I think I would. That's like my mile time. It's 17:43.6. Wow, that's really good. And I've been back there by that terrain. That's rough. That's some rough terrain that they have to deal with, isn't it, Eric?
It is. Definitely it is. But hey, that's a great accomplishment when you're breaking a record of Blaney. You're doing something right.
Yeah, so congrats to Valerie. She's our MVP for the week. All right, let's go ahead and wrap this up. We got a lot going on, but make sure you hop on to Black and Gold Banneret Podcast once again. Lots of content up there, including our latest episode of Night Shift, where you, Eric, and you, Brian, discuss the aftermath of Josh Heupel, Tennessee.
And we drank. Murph, we drank alcohol. It's great.
Well, I don't know what this.
I don't know if that's a selling point.
One of us definitely.
Well, one of us did. We'll leave it at that. Tune in and find out what. Real quick before
you'll be shocked.
Well, one quick note here. We mentioned earlier, we talked about no search firm. That is apparently not the case anymore.
Oh,
John
breaking news?
Yeah, John Rothstein.
Where's the breaking news drop?
Here it is. Here it is. Here it goes. All right, go. John Rothstein reporting that, according to his sources. Oh, he's got sources, guys. John Rothstein's got sources. Turnkey ZRG has been retained to handle the search for UCF's next football coach and AD. So a search firm will decide who is the next AD and the football head coach. So we do have a firm now, according to John Rothstein.
Unload all your Michael Scott, Ron Paul, it's happening gifts. The search firm has been hired.
I'm looking. All right, Turnkey ZRG. All right, now we've really gone down the rabbit hole.
By the way, I've already done some looking. So Turnkey ZRG, I don't know what you're looking for, but what I looked for was, it doesn't look like they've had any previous relationship with UCF. They actually do have a crawl of all of the collegiate teams that they've actually worked with, and UCF is not on that list. So this would apparently be a new organization that's helping UCF.
Well, I'm seeing Southern Cal. I'm seeing LSU. I'm seeing Alabama.
Yeah, big
I'm
name.
seeing the New York Giants. I'm seeing the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah.
I'm seeing the Washington Nationals. Yeah, Michigan. Hey, look at this.
They probably got Jim Harbaugh at Michigan.
Hey, all right. What if they get it at UCF? I'm just kidding. Temple is in here. All right. So, hey. All right, Turnkey ZRG. So let's see how it works out. I was looking at their roster and I don't recognize anybody. So,
but again, to fans, this does not mean that the AD is imminent.
Right. In fact, maybe quite the opposite.
Take a break. This is going to take a little bit of time. We'll get there quickly, but you don't need to scour everybody's Twitter handle for the next couple of days.
Especially these poor people on the search firm. Just stay away let them do their work, please.
Lord. Can I also throw in one thing here at the very end? There is actually something to watch that involves UCF athletics more than, I guess, just the people who are the athletes who are here. The athletes who have gone to the next level, Richie Grant and Aaron Robinson, playing in the Reese's Senior Bowl this Saturday afternoon on NFL Network coming up. They've been holding practices throughout the weeks, a lot of 11s on 11s and 1s on 1s.
They've been killing it in practice, especially today, right, Murph?
Yeah, so Richie got a couple of picks today in practice and kind of has showed out. He's been lining up both safety and corner. Aaron Robinson's got a lot of accolades for his physicality at the line and just sort of the mentality he plays with. People have obviously noticed Richie Grant being a massive ball hawk. So it seems like both those guys are doing themselves some good down there in Mobile. It's always kind of dangerous and kind of sketchy to overinflate a good week in practice here, especially this year, to what it means to their draft stock. Don't get too wrapped up in that. Just know that it's good to see them, playing very well against, the top seniors in college football.
It's good exposure is what it is. Whether or not it affects how high they get drafted, I don't know. Although I did see Aaron Robinson was slated to go late first round, which I think a lot of people were Mel Kiper had him, I think, going 30.
Yeah, Daniel Jeremiah also had Aaron Robinson. I think Daniel Jeremiah had Aaron Robinson going 30 to the Bills. Great. It's also meaningless.
Come on, we love mock drafts.
Well, no, I think this is the takeaway. I think they're on, both of those guys are very much on a lot of teams' radars.
Absolutely, but I don't all of a sudden want people to get they're locked in the first round, because of the way this year's going to be set up with no combine, a lot of individual workouts, a lot of Zoom interviews. A lot like
last year.
Well, no, because we had a combine last year.
Oh, that's true. That's right.
We did have a combine. And so there were a lot of individual workouts in March that were, socially distant, but we had a combine in Indianapolis. That will not happen this year. So what you're going to see is a wide range of outcomes across the board, team to team, and it's really going to depend on how teams scout tape, scout game film, which really it always should be. The combine is really there for scouts to sort of make sure what they saw on film is really true in real life. But the real value of the combine is the interviews, the 40 and the shuttle runs and all that stuff. Like it's flashy and stuff, but it shouldn't make a big difference in a player's draft stock. What you need to see is these guys actually playing against players in live action and performing well. But because we're not going to get as many interviews with players, they're going to be really spread out. Again, the workouts for lesser known guys will be, in individual settings where they might get a couple people to show up. You're going to have obviously some guys at the back end of the draft, probably fall under the radar and not get drafted. But there's not going to be a lot of groupthink for this draft. I don't think at all. I mean, obviously we know who's going to like 1 and possibly 2, but I think you're going to see all mock drafts absolutely not be worth any salt, any of their salt come draft night, because the evaluations are going to vary so drastically.
My mock draft would just be 350 spots with a shruggy emoji. I mean, that's pretty much how it's going to be.
Can we do a Black and Gold Banneret mock draft? Since we no.
Can we?
I'd really not like to do that.
Richie Grant, go 3. No.
No. Please don't.
Well, hey,
please don't make me do that.
Eric, what do you want? You want Devonta Smith at 3, or do you want Richie Grant at 3?
That's tough. I'm gonna give the slight edge. I'm going to give the slight edge to Devonta Smith because we kind of need somebody to catch the ball from Tua or Watson, whoever the quarterback will be. And then, but we could trade up to get Richie. Maybe Richie with the second first round pick. How about that?
I mean, I've seen a lot where people certainly are thinking of Richie Grant and Aaron Robinson. Certainly Aaron Robinson could be late day 1. Certainly both could be day 2 prospects. But don't fall in love with the mock drafts. They're really not going to be worth anything this year. Just know that they are a guide point to know that they are at least well thought of among the scouting community. But
I could see Todd McShay's here on my ESPN Plus plan here. Come on.
Yeah, what'd he say?
Actually, I don't have it on.
Well, for one thing, I think he mixed up a bunch of guys today.
Yeah, he did. He really did. Yeah.
Really,
it didn't go so well.
Yeah.
It's a shame. I like Todd. I really do like Todd, but it's. But
anyway, if you don't have anything to do this weekend, and you're and we won't, and if you're not too busy stalking Ole Miss offensive coordinators, turn on NFL Network at 2:30 on Saturday, and get to see Aaron and Richie ball out.
All right. Thank you for that, Murph. All right, so let's wrap this thing up here. Don't forget to follow us at UCF_Banneret on Twitter, Facebook.com/Black and Gold Banneret, and of course, blackandgoldbanneret.com. We are SB Nation's home for your UCF nights. You can follow us individually at Jeff_Sharon, Eric Lopez Elo, and Spokes_Murphy. Don't forget to follow the rest of our crew as well, bringing content to you all throughout the week for UCF sports and what should be a very busy next few weeks as we await who the new athletic director is going to be, who the new head football coach is going to be. It's going to be wild, and we are going to be on top of it for you here on Black and Gold Banneret. For Eric Lopez and Brian Murphy and all of us here at Black and Gold Banneret, I'm Jeff Sharon saying thank you for listening. This has been the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. We will catch you next week.